AnyLogic Professional has AutoCAD features, and even though there's not a lot you can do with AutoCAD in AnyLogic, there's a lot of tricks that you can take into consideration in order to make the best use of it. So, this video can be taken as a full course on how to use AutoCAD in AnyLogic, starting with the very basics that most people know, and going through some tips and tricks in order to make the best use of AutoCAD in any of your AnyLogic models. So let's get started.
So let's start off with the basics. I will show you how to connect your AutoCAD drawing to AnyLogic. So what you need to do is you have to go to the presentation palette, and here at the end you will find CAD drawing. So you have to drag the CAD drawing into your working area. So now you have this CAD drawing window. Now you have to choose the drawing that you need to connect. So you just press on this window and you go to these 3 points and you choose the AutoCAD file or the AutoCAD drawing that you need to insert in your AnyLogic file. So I have chosen this drawing. So I'm just going to expand the drawing to the whole frame to make it look clearer. Okay, so now we have our drawing here connected to the AnyLogic file. So what you can do with this drawing as a start, first here you can change the fill color. So you can make it white, you can make it any color you want, you can even have no fill. Okay, I will just keep it for no fill for the time being. In addition to that, you can just turn on or turn off the layers that you need. For example, using this click, you can just turn off all layers. That's why we can see anything anymore, or we can turn them back on and have only certain layers turned on, for example. So this is one thing you can do. The other thing that you can do is change the colors of each layer. For example, let's just turn everything off and keep this on. Okay, so if I want to change the color of this layer, I just go here to this drop down list and I choose the color that I want. Now, other than using this drawing as a background in our AnyLogic file, what we can do for now is the following. You can press on the drawing and right click and we choose convert to markup. So here we can choose the layers that we need to change into a certain type of markup. Now for the time being, the only option that is available is changing the items or the drawings into walls. So I'm going to choose, for example, the layers that are actually related to the walls in my AutoCAD drawing. So here I have chosen all the layers that are related to walls. So and the wall is already chosen. So now I will click on finish. Okay, so let's just turn all the layers off to see what happened. So as you can see here, what happened is that all the lines that were present in the layers that I turned on were converted into walls. So how is this useful? So let's say you have a project where the layout of your project is a certain floor and a certain building. So what you need to do is you need to draw the walls and the elements in your floor. So this can save you a lot of time because you can directly change all the lines that are relative to the walls into actual walls in your model. But at the end of the day, it all depends on what you want from your model. So for example, if it is important for you in your project to have precise areas where your agents need to move around, then in this case this would be really useful for you. But let's say that one of the objectives of your project is to have a good presentation, a good looking presentation. So in that case, you wouldn't want your walls to appear the way they do now. So you don't want to have a set of double walls everywhere. So let's run our model and see how this layout would look in 3D. Okay, so as you can see, this doesn't really look very nice. You have everything drawn as a double wall, which is not the case in reality. So what you can do to fix that is that you can go here and erase all the lines or all the walls that you don't need. But in fact, that would take a big amount of time, especially if you have a lot of walls and if the layout is really complicated. So instead of having to modify things in AnyLogic, what you can make use of the AutoCAD drawing is you can actually go to the AutoCAD drawing and modify everything there. So I'm going to talk a little bit about this specific issue. But first, this is what you need to know. First, you need to know that when you connect a certain AutoCAD drawing to your AnyLogic file, AnyLogic directly creates a copy of this drawing and puts it in the same folder that the AnyLogic file is contained in. So if we go here, you will notice now in the folder called resources, if we open, that we have a copy of this drawing inside the same folder that our AnyLogic file is contained. Now if we press on this drawing and see here, you will see two options, either to use the absolute path or to use the relative path. Let's see what happens if we use the absolute path. So if we choose the absolute path, what happens now is that the original AutoCAD drawing is the one that is linked to our AnyLogic file. However, if we choose the relative path, then now the new copy of the drawing that AnyLogic created is the one that is currently linked to our AnyLogic file. Now, why is this important to know? This is important to know because you have to choose which drawing you need to modify that you will use again in your file. So let's say you choose the absolute path and you modify the copy of the drawing in the folder. Then when you reattach this drawing, then the modifications will not appear. So you have to be consistent. The best approach is to use the relative path and to modify the drawing or the copy of the drawing that AnyLogic created in the file. The other thing that you need to know is that if you modify the AutoCAD drawing and save it, the drawing here or the image here does not get updated automatically. So what you need to do is, after modifying your AutoCAD drawing and saving it, you need to reattach it to your AnyLogic file. You can do that by, you can choose none here and then reattach it again. So as an application for this issue, let's say that at a certain point in time, when you are already half through done with your project, when you already imported all your walls, the client decides to add some rooms inside of the level. So in order to accommodate with this issue, you can easily modify the AutoCAD drawing, add all your walls, and then reattach this AutoCAD drawing and import the new walls. But you have to be very careful with this issue, because if you insert the new walls in the AutoCAD drawing with the same layer that contained the initial walls, then when you reattach it here and when you transform the new walls, the initial walls will be retransformed with it. So you'll have a duplicate of walls for the initial ones. So in order to solve this issue, what you need to do is you need to create a new layer inside the AutoCAD drawing, and you have to draw new walls inside this new layer. So this is what I actually did here. I created a new layer and I called it new walls, and I added the new walls inside this layer. So now I will go back to AnyLogic and I will need to reattach the drawing. So I will go here, I will choose none, and then I will reattach the drawing. Make sure that you are reattaching the drawings that exists inside the AnyLogic folder you are working in. Okay, so as you can see now, the drawing is reattached, and now I can see the new walls that I added. So let's turn off all the layers and just keep the new layer that I want, which is called new walls. Okay, we go back now, right click, convert to markup, and since I already have just this layer turned on, I will press finish. Okay, now let's turn everything off, and as you can see, the new walls are automatically added. So as long as you have a basic knowledge in AutoCAD so that you can modify drawings to a certain extent, this can be very useful when using it in AnyLogic. But let's say, for example, that the new addition that you need to add to the drawing are outside the external area of the floor. For example, let's say that the new room that you need to add is located here. Let's see what happens in that case. So as you can see, I have added these new walls to my AutoCAD drawing, and now I need to reattach it in AnyLogic. So let's do this again. So now you can see that things are a little bit messed up. So as you can see, the AutoCAD image has been imported to a different location and probably a different scale than the one that was imported earlier before adding these new external walls. Why does this happen? This happens because AnyLogic imports everything that exists in the drawing into the same AutoCAD window that we have here. So now, because the walls that we have added are outside the boundary or the initial boundary of the building, AnyLogic needs to fit these new walls inside this window, and this is why it has to change the scale. So this is why everything is messed up now. So as long as the things that you need to modify are inside the boundary or the initial boundary of your drawing, then that is perfectly fine, because they will be imported to the same location and with the same scale. But if the items that need to be added are external to the initial boundary, then in that case you will have a big problem. We might try to move our drawing to fit our initial walls, for example. You can do it to a certain extent, but it will not be perfect in all the places because the scale has changed. So as you can see here, my walls here are fitting, but here they are not. And for example, these new walls are also not. So in that case, modifying your drawing in AutoCAD will not be very useful because the whole scale will be ruined. And finally, few last comments regarding the use of AutoCAD in AnyLogic. If you happen to have certain layers that are turned off in your AutoCAD file, for example here in the AutoCAD drawing, I turned off a lot of layers and I froze some other layers, and I just kept these layers turned on. So as you can see, these layers exist, but I have turned them off. Okay, so if I save my file for now and I go back to AnyLogic and I reattach my file again, what happens here is that the layers that are turned off or frozen in AnyLogic will not be turned off here. So if you have this AutoCAD drawing and if you get this in AnyLogic, don't panic. This doesn't mean that you did something wrong or that you attached a wrong drawing. This means that there are a lot of layers that are turned off in your AutoCAD drawing that will be imported here and they will appear to be turned on. So what you can do here, if you want just these layers to be turned on, you can turn them off from inside AnyLogic. And finally, I would like to note that at the time being, importing 3D AutoCAD drawings into AnyLogic doesn't work. So what happens if we try to import a new drawing, I will choose the drawing that I showed you in AutoCAD, which is a 3D drawing. So as you can see here, I will expand it. What happens here is that the drawing is imported as a 2D drawing. So AnyLogic just chooses probably the top view and imports the drawing, or it imports the top view image of the 3D AutoCAD drawing. So just to wrap things up, I'd like to note that although at the time being the features that are related to the use of AutoCAD in AnyLogic are still very limited, and they need a lot of improvement, but this doesn't mean that we cannot make good use of it for now. So as you can see, there are a lot of benefits out of using AutoCAD in AnyLogic, especially when you have complicated layouts. So some might argue that instead of using an AutoCAD drawing, we can just use an image as a background for our layout. Well, you could do that, but that will definitely take you much more time, especially with regards to drawing the walls. And this also doesn't allow you the flexibility that you have in using AutoCAD when you need to modify anything in your layout. So this is what AutoCAD has as a very good benefit. You can easily modify anything in your drawing, and you can reattach your drawing here to modify it. And this is something that you cannot easily do with a normal image. But of course, you have to pay a lot of attention and you have to know how to tweak around things. In addition to all this, you need to have some basic knowledge in AutoCAD to be able to work in it and to modify the things that you need to change.